Amara Williams had everything the world dreams of: wealth that stretched across nations, power that could bend policies in her favor, and a mansion worth millions that glittered under the Lagos night sky. To the world, she was untouchable, celebrated, envied, even feared. But behind the golden gates of her estate, silence was her most loyal companion. She had the world at her fingertips, and yet she could not hold on to happiness. Why would a billionaire mother, surrounded by wealth and power, walk alone into the darkness one night? How could someone so admired be secretly drowning in loneliness? And what did she find out there that shook her life forever? The newspapers only ever printed half the truth. They spoke of Amara's business victories, her shipping empire, her stake in tech companies, her philanthropic projects. But they never wrote about the woman behind the empire, the mother whose only son had walked out years ago, bitter and resentful. They never described the quiet dinner she ate alone, the echo of footsteps in her marble halls, or the moment she stared at the framed photos of a family that no longer existed. It was this emptiness that drove Amara into the night. She wasn't looking for anything. She wasn't expecting to find anyone. She simply wanted to breathe air that didn't smell of perfume and politics. She wanted to hear sounds other than the hum of central air conditioning and the hollow clink of silverware on porcelain. Her security detail begged to follow. Her chauffeur reminded her that billionaires didn't walk, but Amara waved them off. Just one evening, she whispered to herself, just one walk. She didn't know it then, but destiny was already waiting for her, curled up in the shadows. The city was quieter than usual. Streetlights flickered, casting halos of gold onto the pavement. The smell of roasted corn and smoke lingered from faraway stalls. Amara tightened her coat against the breeze, her heels tapping softly. Each step away from the mansion felt like rebellion, a small act of freedom against the cage her wealth had built. And then she saw it. By the corner of a deserted street, near a trash bin, a frail creature trembled. Its fur was matted, its ribs visible, its eyes dark pools of sadness. At first, Amara thought of walking past. After all, she had never been close to animals, never had time to care for one. But the dog lifted its head, and in that fleeting moment, their eyes met. Amara froze. She had seen those eyes before, not in any animal but in her own reflection. Eyes that were tired, abandoned, yet silently pleading for a reason to keep going. Something inside her shifted. She stepped closer, her heart beating strangely fast. The dog didn't growl, didn't run. It simply looked at her, as though it had been waiting. Amara whispered, "What are you doing here, little one?" That night was never supposed to change her life. But it did. Amara returned to her mansion that night with the image of the stray dog haunting her thoughts. She could still see its fragile frame and those sorrowful eyes that mirrored her own. She thought sleep would take the memory away, but even her king-sized bed, dressed in silk sheets, felt too empty to drown her restlessness. She rolled over and reached for her phone, opening the one gallery she swore she'd deleted, the family album. There was her son, Daniel, smiling in a school uniform she had missed seeing him wear because she had been attending an international board meeting. Another photo showed him holding up a trophy, while she was abroad negotiating a deal. There was always someone else in the frame, his nanny, his coach, or a family friend, but never her. Amara's chest tightened as she scrolled. Daniel had been her only child, the heartbeat she promised to protect. But promises had a strange way of bending under the weight of ambition. Amara wanted to give him the world, yet in giving him the world, she had lost him. The last memory was the sharpest, his voice echoing through the mansion's marble halls years ago. "You love money more than you love me, Mom?" he had shouted, his teenage face twisted with fury. "No, Daniel, I'm doing this for you," she had tried to explain. But he wasn't listening. He stormed out that night, leaving a silence that no amount of wealth could fill. Worse still was the absence of his father. Amara's husband had left when Daniel was only 10, fed up with her obsession with building an empire. He accused her of burying their love beneath balance sheets and press interviews. His departure had been the first fracture. Daniel's was the final shattering. Now, in her lonely nights, Amara would sometimes pace through the mansion, her heels echoing like reminders of what was missing. She had gold chandeliers, imported art, and cars that could buy houses, but none of it filled the void left by her family. As dawn broke after her evening walk, Amara stood by the window overlooking her sprawling gardens. She imagined Daniel walking there as a boy, chasing butterflies, laughing freely. She tried to remember the sound of his laughter, but the years of silence had stolen it from her memory. "Where are you now, Daniel?" she whispered to the glass. The loneliness wasn't just hers anymore. When she thought of that fragile dog, she saw a parallel. It too had been abandoned, pushed aside, forgotten. Was it fate that their paths crossed? Or was it punishment, a reminder of all the souls she had failed to hold on to? Her phone buzzed with a business notification. Another merger, another deal. The world still demanded her attention. But for the first time she felt her empire slipping into the background, replaced by the memory of sad eyes in the dark. And deep inside, Amara knew, if she didn't go back for that dog, she would lose yet another chance at love. Long before Amara found him by the trash bin, the little dog had known nothing but survival. His fur, now matted and dull, had once been soft beneath a boy's gentle hands. His first home was not grand, not rich, but it was warm. A little girl in a small neighborhood had named him Lucky. She would feed him scraps of yam and laugh when he chased after her sandals. For a while Lucky knew joy. But joy, like wealth, was fragile. The girl's family fell into poverty, unable to feed another mouth. One night, Lucky was left at a roadside market, tied to a pole, a bag of old bread crusts beside him. He barked as the family walked away, his small body pulling against the rope, but they never turned back. Days turned into weeks. Lucky learned to untie ropes, to dig through bins, to fight other strays for scraps. The streets were cruel teachers, leaving scars on his body and fear in his heart. He wandered from one neighborhood to another, always on the edge of hunger. His once bright eyes dimmed, but they never lost the faint shimmer of hope, hope that someone somewhere would see him. One rainy night, he took shelter under a bridge, shivering as cars splashed water across his fragile frame. He had learned to distrust humans, yet he never fully abandoned the longing for touch. Children sometimes threw stones. Vendors chased him away. Drivers honked at him as though his life had no value. Still, Lucky survived because survival was all he knew. When he stumbled into the upscale district where Amara lived, it wasn't by choice. Hunger had led him there. The smell of grilled meat from a party wafted through the gates of mansions. Lucky lingered, waiting for leftovers, but the guards beat him away. He limped down the street until his legs gave out near the trash bin. That was where Amara found him. Lucky had never seen someone like her, elegant, tall, dressed in fabrics that shimmered under streetlights. To him, she was another human, another pair of hands that might hurt. But when their eyes met, something inside him stirred. He didn't move, didn't bark, didn't beg. He simply looked at her as if asking, "Will you leave me too?" In that quiet exchange, the dog's years of abandonment and Amara's years of loneliness braided into one invisible thread. Neither knew it yet, but they had both been waiting. For someone, for something, for love to find them in the unlikeliest corner of the world. Lucky closed his eyes as Amara's shadow fell over him. If she walked past, it would be just another night. She stopped, his story, and hers, would never be the same again. The night was unusually still, as if the city itself held its breath. Amara's heels clicked softly against the pavement, each step echoing with the weight of unspoken regrets. She had walked only a few blocks from her mansion, but it felt like another world. No chauffeurs, no cameras, no boardroom whispers. Just her and the empty street. Then she saw him. At first, Amara thought it was just a shadow. Curled against the side of a trash bin, the small body barely moved. The dim glow of the street light revealed fur so tangled and dull that it almost blended with the pavement. His ribs stretched like fragile bars across his chest. And then came the eyes, dark, sunken, but painfully alive. They lifted slowly, locking onto hers, piercing through the fragile armor she wore. For a moment, Amara stood frozen. She wasn't a woman who hesitated. In her world, decisions meant millions gained or lost, reputations made or destroyed. But here, faced with a trembling dog on a deserted street, she felt a hesitation that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with recognition. Her instinct whispered, "Keep walking." It wasn't her business. She wasn't the type to kneel in the dirt, not in her designer coat and heels. And yet she took a step closer. The dog didn't flinch. Another step. Still no movement. His eyes followed her, steady, almost pleading. Amara crouched slowly, lowering herself in a way she hadn't done since Daniel was a child playing with building blocks on the floor. The movement felt foreign, humbling. "What are you doing here, little one?" Her voice broke the silence, softer than she expected. The dog's ears twitched. His body tensed as if bracing for cruelty. But there was no stone, no kick, no harsh word. Only a hand, tentative, reaching out. Amara hesitated inches from his fur. She wasn't sure if she was comforting him or herself. The dog sniffed, cautious. Then, with surprising gentleness, he rested his weary head against her hand. Amara exhaled sharply as if someone had punched the air from her lungs. It wasn't just pity she felt, it was something deeper, something unsettling. For the first time in years, someone had touched her without expectation, without calculation. Just trust. She glanced around. The street was empty, save for the faint glow of street lamps. In that moment, the billionaire and the stray were utterly alone, two souls who had lost too much. Lucky, she whispered, the name spilling out before she realized she had spoken it. The dog's tail flicked weakly as if he understood. Amara stood, her heart pounding. She looked down at the fragile creature still leaning against her hand. She could walk away. She could call animal services. She could pretend this night never happened. But as she turned to leave, Lucky whimpered softly, a sound so small, so broken, that it clawed at the deepest part of her. Amara knew then, she wasn't walking away. The gates of Amara's mansion creaked open that night, and for the first time in years, they welcomed not a convoy of black SUVs or guests in glittering gowns, but a frail, limping stray dog. The guards exchanged confused glances as their employer, who once refused even to step into a public park without gloves, walked in carrying the muddy creature in her arms. "Madam, do you want me to?" one began. "No," Amara cut him off sharply, her voice firm but trembling. "Prepare a warm bath. In my bathroom. Tonight." The staff had seen her cold, commanding, untouchable. But never like this. Never cradling something fragile, never breaking protocol for anything other than business. Whispers followed her down the hall as she carried the dog through marble corridors and chandeliers that sparkled above them like distant stars. She placed him gently on a plush towel in her master bathroom. The bright lights revealed the full extent of his suffering. Scars on his skin, dirt tangled in his fur, eyes dulled by hunger. Amara swallowed hard. She had signed contracts worth billions without blinking, yet here she was blinking back tears for a dog. When the warm water touched his body, Lucky whimpered. Instinctively, Amara hushed him, her voice soft, almost maternal. "It's all right, you're safe now." Her hands moved awkwardly and used to such care, but with every stroke of soap and rinse of water, she felt a strange release inside her. The grime washed away and beneath it emerged a coat of patchy brown and white, a glimpse of the dog he used to be. After the bath, she wrapped him in a towel and carried him to her bedroom. Her silk sheets had never known the weight of anything so fragile. Lucky curled at the foot of her bed, too tired to protest. He closed his eyes and for the first time in years, he slept without fear of being chased away. Amara didn't sleep. She sat watching him, the rise and fall of his tiny chest, the twitch of his ears in dream. She thought of Daniel, of the nights he had waited for her to come home, falling asleep on the couch with his homework on his lap. How many times had she walked past him, too consumed with emails and deadlines? Lucky stirred, letting out a soft sigh. Amara reached down and brushed her fingers through his damp fur. "You'll never be alone again," she whispered. The words were meant for him, but they echoed back into her own hollow heart. Somewhere deep within her, Amara knew this was no ordinary decision. It wasn't charity, it wasn't pity, it was destiny. And as the mansion filled with the soft sound of Lucky's breathing, the walls themselves seemed less empty, less cold. For the first time in years, Amara felt she wasn't just living, she was beginning again. It didn't take long for the world to notice. In Amara's life, nothing remained private for long. The staff whispered, the neighbors gossiped, and soon a paparazzi lens caught a single, startling image. Amara Williams, billionaire, carrying a stray dog into her mansion. By morning the photo was everywhere. Headlines screamed across tabloids and online platforms. Billionaire rescues stray, has Amara finally lost her mind? She won't speak to her son but she cuddles a dog? Philanthropy or publicity stunt? Social media erupted. Some hailed her compassion, finally a billionaire with a heart. Others mocked, she saves a dog while humans sleep under bridges? The debates grew louder, messier and crueler. Amara sat at her breakfast table, untouched food before her, scrolling through her phone. She had faced hostile takeovers, courtroom battles and shareholder mutinies, but this felt different. This was personal. Every comment seemed to cut deeper than it should have. "Madam," her assistant said cautiously, "the board has requested an emergency call. They're concerned about your image." Of course they were. For them, image was currency, and Amara's sudden display of vulnerability threatened the empire's carefully built facade. She joined the call, her face framed by the glow of her laptop screen. "Amara," one board member said bluntly, "you're a leader of global enterprises, not an animal shelter volunteer. This distraction, it doesn't serve our investors." Another chimed in, "Your philanthropy is applauded when it funds schools or hospitals. But parading a stray dog? It looks eccentric. Dangerous to your reputation. Amara's jaw tightened. I didn't parade him. I saved him. There's a difference. Investors won't see it that way, came the cold reply. She ended the call before they could lecture further. For the first time she didn't care about the investors. But the harshest blow came hours later, in the form of a phone call she never expected. The screen lit up with a name that made her pulse quicken. Daniel. She answered cautiously. Daniel? Her son's voice was sharp, almost venomous. So, this is what it takes for you to care? A dog? You can rescue a stray off the street, but you couldn't save your family? You couldn't save Dad. Amara closed her eyes, gripping the phone tightly. Daniel, please? No, he snapped. Don't please me. You chose your empire over us. Now you want applause because you picked up a dog? Save it. The line went dead. Amara stared at her reflection in the blackened phone screen. The criticisms from the media and her board stung, but her son's words burned deepest. Lucky padded into the room, ears perked, sensing her pain. He nudged her hand with his nose. Amara's fingers trembled as she stroked his fur. They'll never understand, she whispered, tears blurring her vision. But maybe, you do. And in that fragile moment, the billionaire and the stray became more than companions. They became each other's only refuge against a world that would not forgive them. Days blurred into nights, and the mansion, once an echo chamber of loneliness, now pulsed with the quiet rhythm of paws on marble floors. Lucky followed Amara everywhere, into the study where towering stacks of contracts waited, into the kitchen where she brewed tea she barely drank, even into the sunroom where she sometimes sat for hours staring at the garden. His presence was small but steady, a heartbeat in a house that had forgotten how to feel alive. Yet outside those gates, the world sharpened its claws. The tabloids mocked her. Has Amara gone soft? Investors threatened withdrawal. Even her so-called friends laughed behind champagne glasses at galas she no longer attended. For a woman who had built her empire on reputation, this should have been unbearable. But each night, when she lay down and felt the warmth of Lucky's body curled at her feet, the noise outside dimmed. Still, the silence inside her was not fully gone. It haunted her in flashes. Sometimes, when she stroked Lucky's fur, she would see Daniel's younger face looking up at her, eyes wide with a need she had never answered. The memories came uninvited. Daniel waiting by the window for her car headlights, only to be tucked into bed by the nanny. Daniel's hands slipping from hers at school recitals she had missed. Daniel shouting, his voice breaking, "Why can't you just be my mom?" Those memories hurt more than the headlines. But somehow Lucky eased the weight. When Amara wept quietly at her desk, Lucky pressed his head against her leg, his silent loyalty shaming the cruelty of the world. One sleepless night she wandered into the library. The shelves overflowed with books on economics, law and strategy, manuals of power. Her hand drifted to a dusty box tucked in the corner. Inside were Daniel's old drawings, stick figures holding hands, a lopsided house with 3 smiles drawn in crayon. One drawing in particular made her throat tighten. It showed a little boy, a woman, and a dog. She didn't remember ever owning a dog, which made the drawing more haunting. Had Daniel once wished for this very bond she was now experiencing with Lucky? The irony clawed at her. She had spent her life chasing profits, but what her son had wanted was so simple: a mother's attention, perhaps even a dog to share it with. She had given him everything money could buy, yet nothing he truly needed. Lucky whined softly as if sensing her turmoil. Amara knelt beside him, resting her forehead against his. "I don't deserve you," she whispered. "I didn't deserve Daniel either. But maybe I can do better now." Her empire was shaking, her reputation battered, her family estranged. But for the first time, Amara felt she wasn't powerless. With Lucky's quiet love, she was learning to fight a different kind of battle. The battle for her own humanity. And somewhere in the stillness, a fragile hope stirred. Perhaps it wasn't too late to rewrite her story. It was a Sunday morning when Amara heard the knock. Not the polite rap of staff, not the confident tap of a business associate. This one was harder, raw, almost angry. She opened the door herself, something she rarely did. And there he stood. Daniel. Her son was taller than she remembered, broader in the shoulders, his jawline sharper. The boy she once cradled was now a man, but his eyes, the same piercing brown eyes, held a storm of bitterness. He didn't smile, didn't greet her. He simply stood with arms crossed, as though the doorway itself was a battlefield. "Daniel?" Amara's voice cracked. "You came." "I shouldn't have," he muttered, stepping inside without waiting for her invitation. His gaze swept across the marble floors, the chandeliers, the paintings worth millions. Nothing had changed, but everything felt different to him. Lucky bounded forward, tail wagging, barking softly. Daniel froze, startled. "So it's true," he said bitterly. "You finally found someone to love. Too bad it's not your son." Amara flinched. "It's not like that. He was abandoned, Daniel. I couldn't just leave him." "And you left us?" His words cut sharper than any headline. "You had a husband, a son, a family. We needed you. You weren't there. But suddenly you can play savior to a stray dog." Lucky tilted his head, sensing the tension, then trotted closer to Daniel. Hesitant, Daniel crouched instinctively, and Lucky pressed against him with unguarded affection. The young man tried to resist, but the dog's warmth disarmed him. His lips twitched, almost forming a smile. Amara watched silently, her heart tightening. For a moment she saw the boy he used to be, the boy who once drew stick figures of a family and a dog. She stepped closer. "Daniel, I know I failed you. I know I can't erase the years I wasn't there. But maybe I can start again. Maybe we both can." Daniel stood, his expression conflicted. "You think a dog can fix this?" "No," Amara said softly. "But he reminded me what love looks like. Unconditional, patient, forgiving. Things I should have given you. Things I still want to give if you'll let me." Silence stretched between them. Daniel looked away, fists clenched, then exhaled shakily. "I don't trust you, Mom. Not yet. But I'll give you one chance." He glanced at Lucky, who wagged his tail as if sealing the fragile truce. "Because he trusts you." Tears filled Amara's eyes, but she held them back. She nodded slowly. "One chance is all I ask." For the first time in years, mother and son sat together in the same room. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet. It was a fragile beginning, a thread barely holding. But sometimes, a thread was all destiny needed to weave something whole again. And Lucky, curled between them, became the bridge neither had known they were waiting for. The days that followed felt strangely lighter. For the first time in years, Daniel visited more than once. His presence was cautious, his tone clipped, but he came back, and that alone was a victory Amara clung to. Lucky seemed to sense it too. Each time Daniel entered, the dog would run to him first, tail wagging wildly. Amara sometimes wondered if Lucky belonged more to her son than to her. One evening, while Daniel sat in the living room flipping through old photo albums, Amara brushed Lucky's fur. Her fingers moved gently, careful not to hurt the fragile patches still healing from years of neglect. That's when she felt it, a hard bump beneath the dog's collar. She frowned and parted the fur. There it was. A weathered, rusted tag hidden deep under layers of dirt and tangled hair. Amara's hands trembled as she unclipped it. The metal was scratched, almost illegible, but as she tilted it under the lamp, letters appeared. Not just letters, initials. Her breath caught. J.W. The room tilted around her. The collar slipped from her hands and clattered onto the floor. Daniel looked up sharply. "Mom? What is it?" Amara's lips parted, but no words came. Her mind raced back to the past she had buried. James Williams. Her husband. Daniel's father. The man who had walked out years ago, leaving nothing but bitterness and a trail of unanswered questions. The initials weren't a coincidence. This dog, this stray she had found in the shadows, had once belonged to him. "Impossible," she whispered, shaking her head. "It can't be." Daniel picked up the tag, staring at it. His eyes narrowed. "Dad's." Amara sank onto the sofa, her hands trembling. Memories flooded back. The night James had left, the argument about her obsession with power, the slammed door, the silence that followed. He had taken nothing of value with him. Or so she thought. But he had taken a dog. This dog. Lucky. The revelation twisted like a knife. All this time, the creature she had cradled, the companion who had filled her empty nights, wasn't just a stray. He was a remnant of her broken marriage, a silent witness to the family she had destroyed. Daniel's voice was sharp. "So Dad abandoned him too? Just like he abandoned us?" Amara's eyes burned. "Or maybe fate brought him back. Maybe we were meant to find him." The room fell into a tense silence. Daniel clenched his jaw, torn between anger and disbelief. Lucky, oblivious to the storm, pressed against Amara's leg, tail thumping gently, as though reminding them both of the simple truth. He had chosen them. Amara stroked his fur, tears spilling freely now. "All these years, and you carried a piece of him back to us." She looked at Daniel, her voice breaking. "What if this isn't an accident? What if this is our second chance?" The question hung heavy in the air, a haunting echo neither mother nor son could answer. But in that silence, something shifted. The past was no longer buried. It had returned, wagging its tail, demanding to be faced. The storm of revelation left Amara shaken for days. Every time she looked at Lucky, she no longer saw just a stray. She saw the shadow of James, the man she once loved and lost, the man whose absence had driven her to bury herself in business deals and marble walls. But she also saw something else, a bridge. Because in Lucky's eyes there was no judgment, no past, only loyalty. Daniel wrestled with the truth too. At night, he sat on the balcony staring at the city skyline, anger simmering beneath his silence. Amara feared she had lost him again. Then one evening he spoke, his voice quieter than she'd ever heard it. "Maybe Dad didn't deserve this dog," Daniel said, Lucky's head resting on his lap. "But maybe we do." Amara's heart clenched. She sat beside him, careful not to push too close. "Daniel, I can't undo the damage. I can't erase the years you grew up without me. But I can choose differently now. I want to choose us." For a long moment, Daniel said nothing. The city lights flickered below, distant and cold. Then finally he looked at her. His eyes were still guarded, but softer than before. "One chance," he repeated. "That's all." It wasn't forgiveness, not fully. But it was a door left open. And that was more than Amara ever expected. The following week saw a quiet transformation. The mansion, once echoing with silence, filled with life. Daniel visited more often, sometimes staying the night. He brought friends, laughter, even old memories she thought she'd lost forever. Lucky became the heart of it all, padding between them, nudging their hands together as if he knew the role he played. And Amara? She began to live differently. Deals and dinners mattered less, time with her son mattered more. Her wealth no longer felt like a fortress. It became a tool, a means to rebuild, to heal, to serve. She funded animal shelters in the city, using her influence not just to display power, but to give second chances to those who, like Lucky, had been cast aside. The scandal, once a weapon in the tabloids, turned into an unexpected blessing. People were moved by the story of the billionaire mother who found love in a dog and reconciliation in her son. Some called it staged, others mocked it, but millions more saw the truth. Even the richest heart can be poor without love. One evening, Amara stood at the same street corner where she first found Lucky. Daniel was beside her, shoulders tense but present. Lucky wagged his tail, nose lifted to the breeze. Amara whispered, more to herself than anyone, "I thought wealth was measured in marble floors and gold ceilings. But now, I see it's measured in forgiveness, in second chances, in love you cannot buy." Daniel glanced at her, the faintest smile tugging at his lips. He didn't speak, but in that silence, Amara felt it, hope. And as Lucky trotted ahead, leading them both into the glow of the streetlights, Amara knew. The past would always haunt them, but the future was theirs to write.